there for a tour, I was impressed, you know. But we want to make sure that it's somebody that's actually going to turn around and turn those benefits into the community as well.
Therefore, my question number one, and that's why I wanted to have you answer that before me, suggesting how we prepare for ensuring that women are prepared to receive that license. So if you can answer question number one.
Well, you know what, I think it behooves all of us to basically do our part to make sure that those that actually have shown an interest in this particular field have, one, the resources, the know-how to basically compete in this field. Because we're not gonna frankly waste one of the licenses, because it's not like you have got a great deal of them. We're not gonna waste one of the licenses on an experiment, because we can't do that. You know, it has to be someone that has the resources and go through the process. And I'm sure by the time it gets to the council, they've gone through the process, because they have to do that with the Cannabis Commission, plus the, dealing with planning and zoning by the time it gets to the council. So they've got that. So I'm hoping that as one of these applications shows up, that they've gotten everything that they needed to do, then it would be a great deal, at least a pleasure on my side, to make sure that we push.
So there is no particular criteria from the licensing to ensure that they get, or is it just?
No, because you have to make it the same way as you do with the liquor establishment. It has to be put out there, and technically, the 6 best applicants, as far as the city is concerned, gets the license.
So what is the
We have come out and said, I want to make sure that at least 2 of those applicants are minority applicants. I have said that as both the president of the council and a member of the commission, the committee, that we will strive to if we have minority applicants. If we don't have minority applicants, you're not going to hold up 2 licenses in hopes that someday you'll get to.
So therefore, you have not yet determined particular license.
We have no. This is why I'm saying that this whole thing is premature, because the process hasn't gone through. We have no idea who's applying. Right. We hear that there's supposedly 11 or 12 host agreements signed, but as far as the application to the Cannabis Commission, I can't tell you right now that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, other than the 2 grandfathered ones that are going to get it anyway. So the other 6, I have no idea, because we have not been told who the applicants are, or they have gone through the process of the requirements of the Cannabis Commission first.
So this is gonna be a really long process.
It's a long process.
Everybody's hearing process, but I'm not hearing what she wants. What is the process?
That's why,
That's
and
the
I don't know how clear I can be.
right on the-
So we already know what's needed from the host agreement.
Right.
You're saying that there are 6 licenses to give that the council will determine.
Correct.
What is the process or criteria the council will utilize on those particular to get those 6? If you have it, great. If you don't have it, just say you don't have it.
We don't have the specific, like, we're not gonna sit here and look at what kind of ink was used on this application versus this, so we don't have that. What we're looking at is complete applications for us to decide what are the best applicants for the city of Brockton. In terms of revenue producing, in terms of
What's on
having,
the
that's
application?
basically how we
So-
Yeah, what's on the application?
And I just want to say this one piece. If there's already a criteria for the host agreement, then all of them that you get is going to pretty much look the same. So you don't yet determine what you're looking for, a specific strategic 5-year plan. Are you looking for a certain percentage that the goal is going to be after X amount of time? That's what I'm trying to say.
There is some because it has to do with zoning, for instance. Where is your location gonna be? How far is it from a school? Is it in a plaza that's a standalone? Do you have those exist? But in terms of anything else to basically look at criteria, we don't have it.
So, I'm not to belabor this, but I think that so yeah, right. So New Bedford has it, and to what my colleague chair is saying, New Bedford has that sort of what she's asking. New Bedford has already. So I guess what. So how do I know when to apply for?
What we
Yeah.
what the people need.
Right, how do you know that?
The guidelines when they
The guidelines are
apply.
on- Remember, the Cannabis Commission in Massachusetts is ultimately the deciding factor as to what applications actually come to the city.
Right, no, I got
On
that.
their website, there's basically the entire, I'll bet you that what New Bedford has there
Yeah.
is basically what's copied from their website.
Okay, yes, they label it as a screening form, application for the establishment of marijuana.
It looks
host
nice
agreements.
on the letterhead from New Bedford, but it's basically stuff that you can find on the commission's, website.
So if, in fact, so doesn't that move to what Kimberly is saying, doesn't that kind of like move the current, and you guys, I'm being respectful of what I'm about to say, doesn't that kind of move the white folks host agreements before the city council for licensing without the minorities? It does, right?
No,
No?
no. Because remember, there's a whole process
Okay.
that goes into play.
Okay.
It's not just a host agreement.
No, I
Because
got
they gotta go to the commission,
But the-
and who's
the
the commission if they're
process.
able
Okay.
to run this business.
And
Let me
I
get the
would
bishop
say-
first. Bishop.
And I wanted to do this too, because there is right now no particular system, I would like to address and implore the commission to set up some type of education for those
Yes,
individuals of
yes.
color,
Yes,
especially
please.
women.
That's
So
Yes, please.
this is what you're going to need to do. This is
From A to Z.
from A to Z, and I am willing to speak on behalf of the Women's Commission, how we can do that to make sure that our women are prepared when,
Right.
when those
We can do that in
applications come
collaboration.
through. So let us talk
We can
about
talk
that
about
also.
that. Bishop.
Marvin Green. So my question was kind of similar to your line of questioning, asking for some clarity as to what the council will take into consideration when they decide to award the license to an applicant. So I have a couple of questions for you. One, has the council seen the application from the Cannabis Commission?
It hasn't gotten to that level.
Hasn't gotten to that level. For those who have signed a host agreement with the other mayor, do they need to go to the Cannabis Commission
That's
before
their
their
step
application
one.
comes to the council?
That's one of the steps, one of the requirements for you to go in front of the Cannabis Commission. One of the steps that you have to, one of the boxes that you have to check is that if you have a community host agreement.
Okay, so what about those minorities who do not have a host agreement currently with the other mayor? What recourse?
That's what there's
Do
that
they
other
have it?
path, there's that other path where you can actually go through
Straight to the campus.
the equity to apply directly to the Cannabis Commission. And then it kind of almost works, it kind of works backwards, you know, because you don't have, you can bypass that host agreement and go to the commission and apply through them for that special, it's almost like a special license that they're looking at. You still have to go through all that entire process, have your finances in place, have all the other things that you have to have. But it actually gives you a path to that particular level without the host agreement.
Okay, so for clarity, the Cannabis Commission will look for host agreement, and at the same time, they're also
Yeah.
willing to look at applications without the other host agreement. Is that
You
correct?
got it.
Okay, all right. My third and final question is, what's the other time frame for the council to kind of detail out what the criteria are in regards to their reviewing all the applications and making a decision on who they're going to award the other license?
That process, I think, is one of those things that we'll cross that bridge when we get to, because it's the same way that we do when we're licensing garages, licenses for mechanical shops and things like that. Those
Okay.
applications come to the city clerk. It's checked off whether or not they've gone through the fire department, the police department, nobody has an issue with that, and then that shows up at the council's hands. And then we schedule a meeting and it gets heard.
Okay.
You know, but the whole package will come with, you know, here's the check mark from the Cannabis Commission saying you have been approved, you know, here's, your finances are all in place, your zoning has been okay, your planning has been okay, we've got that entire package. And all things being equal, then we decide on the 6 applicants.
And this is an election year, so all of this could be altered.
No,
No, can't.
How's that
Oh,
gonna
no.
If there's a different mayor,
No.
they can't, that's a contract.
Yeah, it's fine. Madam,
Now, the host agreements, if this is
Mr. President.
just the host agreements.
Yeah.
So, alright, so for the people that do have a host agreement, do they know that you all have a final say on this? Because I've gone to a couple different meetings, and without saying who they are, there's, some people who have, they bought the building on Field Street, and they're gonna be having a grow house. I mean, they're talking about hosting job fairs and everything else, and they're pretty, they sound pretty sure that they are going to have this facility. I mean, it sounds like they already have seeds in there. So, pardon? But,
Main Street manager.
The seeds are in place.
right, exactly, so to speak.
So your question is, do they know?
Right, so I mean, do these
Now
folks
remember-
that have these agreements understand
Remember,
that you
row
all have the
houses-
final say?
Row houses are not controlled the same way that the 6 licenses are.
Can you repeat that?
Oh, okay, yes, please.
The grow houses, the cultivation piece,
Yes.
is not the same process that the 6.
Oh, so wait a minute, so I can start growing right now?
No, you still have to go, no, you
Culture,
still have to
yeah.
go through the commission.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not, the criteria is not the same.
To
as the
cultivate,
retail
cultivate.
So cultivating is not, okay.
Do you have another question?
Yes, and
Yeah.
then the second question is, what, if anything, is the city council or the people above you going to do about the faces of black and brown teens who are getting arrested for marijuana possession while we have all of these other people who are making profits off of marijuana? What are you all doing about that? Because this is not okay with me.
Well, I understand where you're coming from with this, but you gotta remember one thing. The people that we pay to run this city is the mayor, the chief of police, the solicitor. Those are individuals that we pay on a daily basis to run this community. The city council's job is to advocate for you, but at the same time, there's boundaries. You know, often we're asking councils to do certain things that it's not within our purview. I cannot direct the chief of police to do certain things because he does not answer to me or my colleagues in the council. He answers to the mayor. So a lot of times we as a community do not hold the right authorities responsible for the actions that we want in the community. You know, we throw a lot of things out there in hopes that something will stick, but there's something very specific. If brown kids are being arrested at a disproportional rate, then it's up to us as a community, not necessarily, I could go as a city council to help advocate, but as a community person that I am as well, I should be able to go out and say, why is this happening? You know, why is this happening at a rate that it shouldn't be accepted by anybody or acceptable by anybody? But the responsibility that we have is to hold those that we actually pay to do their jobs responsible for doing their jobs.
Just want to make
We
sure.
cannot to do that.
I just want to make sure that we get the public first.
Well, I just want to clear something up on the road.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong. On the dispensaries, more host agreements went out than you have the licenses. On the grow ops, there were 4 host agreements that came out and only 4 went. So I think maybe we are seeing it's going to happen and there's not going to be a fight for, as long as they pass the licensing. I don't think there's going to be an issue on that. So I think the difference.
There's no limits in the grow house.
There's not.
I thought only the host agreements went out before. We have to get the manufacturing and
You
cultivation.
guys continue to mix up
So,
the host agreements with licenses.
With licenses, right, but Council
The
Pugh.
host agreements, just because there was one host agreement, it doesn't mean that it's just one. You know, there's no decision exactly how many grow, because actually, to be honest with you, we make better money, we as a city, in grow
in
houses
grow houses,
than we do in
because
retail.
then we can supply the state,
Exactly.
Right.
So, to be honest with you, that's why some communities
we need to be growing.
who are against retail marijuana
Black people
Well,
will
are
find-
for growing.
Right.
But
Because growing is not causing you issues in this, you know, you don't have to put the regulate, like the zoning does not exist as it does for retail.
Yeah, but 4 host agreements were signed for grow ops. So you still have.
I mean, but the host agreements still go back to his honor, the mayor.
And there's only 4 and only 4 companies. Maybe you can apply for more, but that's the way it is.
I couldn't tell you how many, but I'm just telling you that, my number one concern was basically the issues that we were gonna have with retail.
Right.
That's the,
You know, to make sure that, you know, we have 6, we stick with the 6, and it's the 6 best retail shops for the city and properly located.
Mr. President, we have one,
It wasn't 10?
It was 8.
Mr. President, we have one in the back. Sir, can you say your name so we can
My
have
name
it?
is Mark Bouquet. Just for clarification, where does it say in writing that you can actually upload this application that you're sending through to the commission without a host agreement? Because from what I read, you need a host agreement in order to use
Did you go into their website?
the cannabis control
Yeah,
commission.
and basically what it says about that special license.
Special license.
in the cannabis- The economic empowerment. Did you go to their website and look at that? Because it's a different criteria altogether for you to apply for this economic empowerment process. So I think you need to kind of read that and see first.
There's a person in Boston that's actually doing it, or some other community, so it's there. To bypass the local municipality, gonna apply directly to the cannabis, and then come back to the city, it's actually there.
Okay,
It's there.
well, I have a question for you. When it comes to after all of that process is done, you go through the CCC and the planning board. Is it first come, first serve when it comes to the licenses, or are you guys gonna?
I think the way we had talked about it, again, it's not in black and white yet, because we haven't gotten to that stage yet. You know, like I said, it's a long process, and the Cannabis Commission decides whether or not even those applications make it down to the local level.
Yeah, I know.
So once it gets down to the local level, I think what we had discussed is that we're gonna basically put them all out to the council, you know, the 12 applicant, or whatever number of applicants we get. You know, to basically then decide on 6.
How long is that time period? Because it
We
does
don't know
take
yet,
long.
because we don't know exactly how many we're gonna get.
Well,
I mean, the state could come down, I mean, there's 12 host agreements, the state can come down and says, only 4 passed.
okay.
So if the 4 passed,
We pray it's for.
we license 4.
Does the state commission have a goal of economic empowerment?
Yes, they're trying very hard to make sure that communities of color and communities affected by this are actually given a fair shot of competing with other so-called more prominent folks in
So
our
then
city.
my question is, when it comes to the regulations, did you guys know about the economic empowerment, or the fact that Brockton is part of the communities that have been impacted by the war on drugs prior?
Well, everybody knew that because we were going by the same literature that was first put out by the commission.
So you guys were aware that you were supposed to do a social equity program?
We're not supposed to, the state does.
But they require the 29 cities to at least implement some extra social equity.
Right, but the state, but you gotta understand that the commission, the CCC is actually the one that licenses the.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how Boston has a social equity program, how New Bedford has a social equity program, how Somerville has their 1 to 2 social equity program. When it comes to an economic person or a social equity person that has been accepted by the CCC can come, and then they have, like how the CCC has a priority, you jump to the street in front of the line, just like certain towns, if you fit into that certain criteria and you meet having a business plan, having SOPs and all that stuff, that you can get a host agreement, or that you fit into some special place to where you can go to the CCC instead of not having anything. 'Cause they don't have
Andrea Cabral is coming to Brockton next Tuesday. She's gonna speak at Messiah, because she's quite familiar with all of this that's been going on. So I would suggest people go to hear her.
And I'm saying we as a city, we didn't do a very good job with this whole thing.
You think?
We didn't. But what, at the same time, I'm not gonna sit here and beat myself up over it, because at least from that corner office down there where we sit, we at least took the additional step to say, you know what, we wanna make this a fair process.
Absolutely.
For the applicants, once it gets to our level.
Tina Cardoso has had her hand up for 20 minutes.
So I commend all of you folks on the diversity committee for bringing this to the forefront. I think it's an important issue. You guys have done a really great job. I commend Council President Rodriguez for coming in today. I feel like he's learned from us, we've learned from him, and I'm sure he'll take a lot of this back to make it a fairer process once they have everything worked out. I like what my sister said over there about the criteria. I sit on the zoning board, and too many times I watch my people come in and lose their cases because they're ill prepared. So I feel like that's something that the commission could take on, more education for our people, because a lot of times they don't know what to expect. I feel like folks need to come out to things like this and go sit at zoning. Everyone's welcome to these things so they can learn. You know, oftentimes I feel bad for people who walk in and they're not prepared. They don't have, you know, the fancy lawyer. They don't have this, they don't have that. But if we do more as a community to prepare people, then we wouldn't need to be even sitting here right now. So the other thing, maybe this came up, I'm not sure, the funds that the money that we raise, the revenue that's generated from this, what my sister said here, what can be done to have some of that money go back to the community to fund, say, a multicultural center for our Black and brown kids, more mentorship programs, that type of thing? Has that been something that's been discussed at all?
No, see, again, you gotta go back and say who does what. You know, although we control the budget in the city, we can only cut the budget. We can hold budgets, but we can't say I'm gonna take it out of A and put it in B, because that's not our job. You know, so I think what we as a community need to do is demand from those that actually put together budgets. Because these funds are gonna go into the general fund of the city. You know, because it's income generated.
Right.
It's gonna go into the funds of the city. Yes, there's been talk about the educational pieces, but I actually, one of the arguments that I've made in the past is that marijuana generated income shouldn't really be used solely for drug education.
Right.
Because, I mean, people argue back and forth as far as the effect of drugs, you know, this drug versus that drug, but I think opioid should be treated, you know, especially as the issues that it has, and funding for opioid battling should come from someplace else, not necessarily in the back of marijuana funding. You know, some of it could be used, but not all of it. You know, because I guess the intent, sometimes you see people talking about, we need drug education, and if you've got, you're generating, you know, $7-8 million, you want to take that, you know, money and put it into drug education, when those funds technically didn't have much to do with the issues that you're facing.
Right. We need
So
more
I'm hoping as we move forward with this, again, there's nothing beyond the ordinances that were passed. No one has been in front of zoning, no one is in front of planning for anything to do with marijuana. We have not been notified from the commission that one Brockton applicant has been approved. We haven't been told that from their standpoint. So we don't know that. So right now, all this discussion that we're having is, you know, frankly, it's good for TV, it's good for you know, for talking and stuff, but we're actually talking without substance, because we don't have anything concrete as to what we're going to talk about, because we don't have anything.
We're gonna wrap this up. Vanessa has one more comment, then we're gonna wrap this up.
I just want to say that as far as economic empowerment, you're supposed to do some type of program in the city. So that's why economic empowerment is important instead of having regular medical and regular people, because they're not obligated to do things for the community as economic empowerment are supposed to do. And then to your comment that you said that it's too early, in my opinion, if I never spoke out and went to the news, this conversation wouldn't be happening right now. And Black people have been affected by this. We have been arrested by this. Our families have been affected by this. So this is very important, regardless if it's early or if it's not early. The fact that Massachusetts allowed Black people to have a chance in this compared to California and Colorado that doesn't have any Black people, we always need to have this conversation because people are being arrested every day for this. Families can't get bail because they're poor and their families are in jail for nickels and dimes. Like, there's real issues in this.
It's required. I have relatives who have been deported out of this country because of
I have relatives that are arrested for this, so it's deep.
Well,
It's deep.
get deported after they've been arrested.
Yeah, but I mean, it happens. I have Haitian, I'm Haitian. I have families that have been deported too.
So it's a real issue for us, and that's why actually I have, we're checking with the law, because everything you gotta check with law, making sure that you're not doing anything illegal in a way, to see if we can actually streamline the funding that comes from marijuana generated income to put it on specific programs. Let's say 20% for this, 20% for that, 10% for this. But we found out that we really can't do that. That's not within the preview of the council to dictate where funding goes specifically.
I understand that, but economic empowerment, that's what we're supposed to do. As an economic empowerment and social equity, we're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
We're supposed to help our community. They give us guidelines of what we're supposed to do.
But that's on your side, not the city side. So what she's saying is, if she gets a license, she's obligated to give back to the community with her portion of her proceeds.
Compared to everybody else that got host agreements, they're not obligated to do anything. They don't have to. They just have to do 3% and that's it. I'm obligated. I'm supposed to and I want to.
Well, that's why, remember what I said earlier, I don't know if you heard what I said, that we are gonna pick in that chamber what benefits the city most. And if there's a couple economic folks in there that will be more beneficial to the city, why would we not select that? Because we're looking to see what can we get back in return from the marijuana sale. I know people, were feeling one way or the other again, when the marijuana discussions were taking place, but that ship had sailed, whether, it doesn't matter if you were for it, against it, whatever the deal is. We're looking for the best investment for the city. And if that's the case where we get one applicant who comes from that particular side of things, who will be donating or giving out some funding, besides the 3% to the community, why would we not accept that, knowing that the city benefits from that?
We appreciate, so President Mosesberg, we want to thank you. Does any member of the commission have a specific question to the president, because we need to wrap up?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I just want clarification because I heard the proposal agreement and all these kind of things, right? I just want to make sure I'm understanding things properly.
I understand from what you were saying that the people that get involved and are trying to get this, somehow or the other, they have to have a host agreement in order to be able to participate. Is that, I'm not,
Qualify.
in order to qualify?
It's one of the check marks.
Okay.